بارك الفاتحة مع الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. وعجل فرجهم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من اللعين الشيطان الغوي الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبه نستعين والحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وهو أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين ورحمة الله للعالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيتي الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الميامين المهديين ولعنة الله دائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من يومنا هذا إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. يا أيها الذين آمنوا إن تنصروا الله ينصركم ويثبت أقدامكم. Allah Azza wa Jal in Surah Muhammad, Ayah 7. I chose this verse for today because I saw a video which broke my heart. A video of the Taliban entering the city of Herat and pulling down the liwa of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And my mind went to this ayah of Quran. These are ayam al-mudhlima for the Shia, for the lovers of Ahlul Bayt, for all the Muslims. These are the days when we're reminded of the ayah al-Karima where Allah says, "O you who believe, if you come to the aid, to the help of the cause of God, of Allah, Allah will help you, yansurkum, wa yuthabbit aqdamakum, and He will keep your feet firm." This is the time, my dear brothers and sisters, unlike no other time, where we must turn to pray for ta'ajeel al-faraj. We must turn bil-ilha, with desperation and tadarru' and khushu' and desperation for the coming of the Imam, for his assistance, for Allah to remove this gham and ham from our hearts. This is a difficult day. A lot of the brothers and sisters are afraid. What will happen tomorrow to the millions and millions of followers of Ahlul Bayt while we sit here murtahin in our masajid, Husayniyat? Do we understand this ni'mah? While millions of our Shia, millions of followers, mawaleen of Ahlul Bayt are scared, they don't know tomorrow what will come, what will happen to them. This is the time where the Imam of our time is looking to each of us in our hearts. And he wants to know which of us are real and which of us are fake. Are our hearts with them? I wanted to read to you a story tonight. I chose a story. Tonight we keep it light a little bit. A story of Hajj Mullah Ali ibn Hassan al-Kazaruni. It's in a beautiful book, Ajaib Ziyarat al-Hussein, written by one of the ulama of Najaf. It is, I'm not just choosing from here and there, written by an alim. narrates a story, a reliable story. Mullah Ali ibn Hassan al-Kazaruni goes, he says, I lost my father, فقدت والدي في طفولتي. I lost my father during my young age. ولم يعلمني أحد فكنت أميا. I had no one to teach me. So I was illiterate. I couldn't read. حتى عزمت في إحدى السنوات على زيارة الإمام الحسين سلام الله عليه, until one of the years I decided to perform the ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. On what day? Yom Arafah. As we know, Yom Arafah is one of the special days to visit Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Ayam al-Makhsusa. And he says, I went for the ziyarah, ولكن وجدت الطريق مسدودة. I couldn't get through. The road was closed. The way was closed. من كثرة الزائرين. There were so many people, I couldn't make it to the haram. And not only that, at that moment I then began to look for somebody around me to maybe recite Ziyarat al-Warith or one of the ziyarat for me, because I can't read Arabic. I can't read at all, he said. Now we see, what does he do? My dear brothers, listen very carefully, and my dear sisters, please close your eyes and take your heart to Karbala. هو قال ناديت سيد الشهداء قائلا. He then says, I cried to my Imam Sayyid al-Shuhada. I cried out to him. I said, Sayyidi laqad ji'tu ila huna ala amali ziyaratik. That I've come here hoping to perform your ziyarah. Wa inni ummiyun lam ajid man yakra'u az-ziyarah li. That I can't find anybody to recite the ziyarah for me. Do you know how sincere that cry was from his heart? When we cry to Abu Abdullah, is our nida sincere? Is it from here? Look what happens now. He says, فَجَاءَ سَيْدٌ جَلِيلٌ. And this magnificent Sayyid comes to me. فَأَخَذَ بِيَدِي. And he takes my hand all of a sudden. فَقَالَ لِي تَعَالَ فَشَقَّ الصُّفُوفَ الْمُزْدَحِمَةِ. And the lines were so packed, they opened as we walked and we entered the haram of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. So firstly, it's the day of Arafah, he says. Packed. You can't even get through the crowd. For those who have been on Arafah or Ashir, Ashura, Nisf Sha'ban, you know. You can't even get, it's hard to even get to Dhari, leave aside to enter Haram. It's completely filled with people. He says that the crowd opened. وَقَرَأَ إِذْنَ الدُّخُولِ. And he read إِذْنُ الدُّخُولِ for me. You know what we read before we go in, right? To seek permission from the Imam and from Rasulullah and from Malaika, whether we can enter or not, the presence of the Imam. And we entered the Haram together, سوية. فقرأ لي زيارة وارث. وبعد زيارة قال لي. And after he read زيارة وارث for me, he said to me, from this day يمكنك من الآن أن تقرأ زيارة وارث وأمين الله. That from this day you will be able to read زيارة وارث and Aminullah. So don't leave it. فإن كتاب مفاتيح الجنان. For this is the book مفاتيح الجنان. It is authentic, صحيح. فخذ نسخة من مكتبة شيخ مهدي عند بواب الحرم. So go to the library of Sheikh Mehdi, the bookstore of Sheikh Mehdi, and you'll get a copy of Mafatih al-Jinan of Sheikh Abbas al-Qummi Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh. He says, I then go to the bookstore. It's a beautiful story. He says, I go to the bookstore and you know what happens? The owner of the bookstore, Sheikh Mehdi, he says rather before he went there, there was so much crowd. He did sajdatul shukr. And he thanked Allah for two things. Al-lutf al-ilahi wa inayat sayyidu shuhada. These two things come together, my dear brothers and sisters. We cannot have one without the other. We cannot have the grace of Allah, al-lutf al-ilahi, biduna inayat al-Husayn, salamullahi alayhi. But these two came together in his life because of his nida and his cry to Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam. Because that cry was sincere. So he got al-lutf al-ilahi wa inayatu Sayyid al-Shuhada, and the divine assistance, or the miraculous assistance rather, of Sayyid al-Shuhada. He says, I did sajdatul shukr, and when I got up I couldn't find the Sayyid. Sayyid was gone. He says, I get to the bookstore. Sayyid was with me. I get to the bookstore and the man already has the book ready for me. And he even has the bookmark on the page of the ziyarah where I am to recite. He says, until this day I never found the Sayyid again. We all know who he is referring to. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inayatul Hussein, Inayatul Sayyid al-Shuhada, the assistance of Sayyid al-Shuhada comes through whom? Very often. Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraja. Al-Lutf al-Ilahi, the divine grace of Allah, comes through whom? The Imam of our time. This is the lesson, the ibrah of this story. And when we turn to Allah for help, and we are ready to help in His cause, He will make our feet firm. And it reminds me of a letter of Sahib al-Zaman, may Allah hasten his reappearance, the Hujjah, to Uthman bin Sa'id and his son. I narrated part of this last night, and I'll continue just the last few lines of it. It's very important, the letter of the Imam to Uthman bin Sa'id wa Muhammad bin Uthman. These were the first two representatives, special representatives, Sufara of the 12th Imam, of our living Imam. He says, لكن أقدار الله عز وجل لا تغالب. That when Allah determines something, no, it cannot be overcome. وإرادته لا ترد وتوفيقه لا يسبق. And the will of Allah cannot be turned back by anybody. And when God desires, when God determines tawfiq for someone, nobody can come in front of it. Nobody can get ahead of it. Allah determined the tawfiq for this person to be with the Imam, despite him being ummi, illiterate, unable to read and write. But he believed truly in his heart. He came to Imam al-Hussein truly believing that there is no other option for him. See, our problem is we have all the other options, Right? As Imam al-Sadiq says, Salamullahi alayhi, Man kana lahu hammun, Man kana lahu hamman wahida, kafahu Allahu hamma. The one who has a single desire, a single vision, one objective and direction and worry, meaning the path of A'immah. This is what the Imam is referring to. Allah will make this enough for them. They won't need anything else in their life. وَمَنْ كَانَ هَمَّهُ فِي كُلِّ وَادٍ. And the one whose ham is everywhere, meaning a little bit with Allah, with Islam, little bit with akhareen, little bit with other people. The last Allah, lam yubal Allah, or lam yubal Allah, bi ayyi wadin halaka. The last Allah shall care which of these paths end up destroying the person? بِأَيِّ وَادٍ halaka. He will be destroyed. But the question is, which of the other paths will destroy him? Allah leaves him. If he thinks that he can divide up his investments in this dunya, little bit with deen, little bit with other things, then let him go and do it. But this man did not do that. That's the lesson here. He came with one ham, and that was Sayyidul Shuhada. And because of that, Allah blessed him not only with the blessing of learning to read and write and learning the ziyarah, but He blessed him with learning the ziyarah at the hand of Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. And this is real for the people who have experienced the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who have experienced, this is something dhawqi, shay'un dhawqi. It's something you have to experience. You will understand, inshallah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us this tawfiq, inshallah, to be among those people whose ham is just one. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And when we want to have one ham, our heart has to be emptied of everything else. And that's a process. We live in a world today where we put so much hope in power and wealth. Look at America, 20 years in Afghanistan. 20 sana. How much billions or trillions of dollars has been spent, all in the name of, I don't know what, democracy or whatever the name is that they use. Not only America, NATO, Canada, the European countries, all of them, right? ISAF, right? International Forces. I'm Canadian. The Canadians have also been in Kandahar for many years. I know that. And many men have died, have come back in body bags and caskets. I know that. After all of that, in the name of democracy or whatever they call it, Afghanistan falls in 3 weeks after 20 years. Our problem as insan is we don't turn to Allah for assistance, really. We turn to wealth and power. And we put our hope somehow that these institutions will come to our salvation. These institutions will help us. These institutions will somehow be our solution. We forget sometimes al-ajaz khayrun min al-fujur. We sometimes forget that maybe a little bit of political weakness is better than going into corruption. Al-ajaz khayrun min al-fujur. That's based on a hadith of Rasulullah. Not from me, I'm not just coming up with statements. That the Prophet says a time will come when al-ajaz khayrun min al-fujur. This is a time when he says bada al-Islam ghariban wa sayaudu ghariba, where Islam will be estranged and we will return to be in a state of ghurba and estrangement. These are the days where we sometimes have to choose. We can't have our cake and eat it too. These are the days where we turn to Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, as Imam al-Sadiq has taught us in Dua Ahad. What does he say? Man da'a ilallahi arba'in sabahan. That the one who calls upon Allah for 40 mornings, bihad al-ahad, with this pledge, with the Imam of the time, min ansar qa'imina, yani kana min ansari qa'imina, he shall be from among the assistants of the Savior, of the Qa'im. And if he dies, in mata qablahu, akhrajahu Allah ta'ala min qabri, Allah will take him out of his grave. Wa atahu Allahu bi kulli kalima alif hasana. And for every word he recites, Allah gives him 1,000 hasana, 1,000 good deeds. وَمَهَا عَنْهُ أَلِفْ سَيِّئَةٍ. And He erases from him 1,000 bad deeds just for pledging allegiance to Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. 40 mornings. That is what the Imam is asking from us. How many of us are ready even to do this? Inshallah. Do we have a right to sit and complain? Bil shakwa and complaints and this and that. How many of us? I look at myself first and foremost. Nafsi. 40 mornings. This is the guidance of Ahlul Bayt. And what do we say here? It's such a beautiful pledge of allegiance. Allahumma balligh Mawlana al-Imam al-Hadi al-Mahdi. That, oh Allah, deliver our Imam, the Mahdi, the Hadi, the guide. Al-Qa'im bi-amrillah salawatullahi alayhi wa ala abaihi tahirin. The one that shall rise with the order of Allah fi mashariq al-ard wa magharibiha. All mu'mineen should know this dua. This is something our children should already know. Once they learn to recite, this is something they must know. This is a part of our connection with Sahib al-Zaman. The lazim. Allahumma inni. That, oh Allah, today I renew. In this morning, I renew with you. Ujaddid. Fi sabihati hada al-yawm. In this morning. That as long as I live, ma'ashtu bihi fi ayami ahadan waqda. That I swear that as long as I live, I am making a pledge of allegiance and a contract, meaning something that's around your neck. وَبَيْعَ لَهُ فِي عُنُقِي. Around my neck. And I shall never لا أحول عنها ولا أزول. And I will never, we're swearing to Allah, that I swear I will never turn away and I will never stop being in a state of bay'ah and allegiance to Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. This is to be done for 40 mornings. And when the Imam returns, we read in the riwayat sahiha, the authentic traditions about this subject. Imam al-Baqir has narrated, إِذَا قَامَ قَائِمُنَا وَدَعَ اللَّهُ يَدُهُ عَلَى الرُّؤُوسِ الْعِبَادِ فَجَمَعَ بِهَا أُقُولُهُمْ وَكَمَلَتْ بِهِ أَحْلَامُهُمْ. That when the Imam shall rise, salamullahi alayhi, two things will happen. Allah will bring all of their intellects together. How will this work? Subhanallah. That all of the greatest intellects in the world, of those who have pledged allegiance to the Imam, their intellects shall come together and their dreams shall be fulfilled. Kamalat bihi ahlamuhum. That through the Imam, through the Qa'im, their ahlam shall be fulfilled. But what kind of ahlam do they have? Of movie shows and TV or what? Ahlamhum. Ahlam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman. This is the ahlam of the Imam. The visions and the dreams of the Imam. That they speak to the Imam in their sleep. They remember his words in their sleep. They perform his ziyarah in their sleep. He comforts them before they go to sleep. He comforts them when they wake up. This we know these things. Kamalat bihi ahlamuhum. Today we see the flag of Imam al-Hussein being brought down. And we have a duty to turn, to renew our allegiance to the Imam of the time. And to pray and supplicate with utmost desperation and sincerity that inshallah the Imam will return very soon. And even if he doesn't in our lifetime, Allah, inshallah, will bring us out from our qubur and our graves so that we could be under his flag. This is our beliefs. At this moment, my dear brothers and sisters, our truest power lies in our dua. Ad-dua silahul mu'min. I know this seems so simple. I know you've heard it before. I'm not bringing you anything jadid or, Roshan Fikri. I know. There's a lot of things I could bring new and exciting, but this is important. Because these are the things that we already know, but sometimes we need a reminder. We need a motivation for these things sometimes. That when we go home tonight, we will renew that pledge of allegiance with the Imam of the time. We will sit for 40 days, for 40 mornings, inshallah, to renew that pledge with him. And we will plead with Allah and say, أَمَّا يُجِيبُ الْمُضْطَرِ إِذَا دَعَاهُ وَيَكْشِفُ السُّوءَ. And who is muttar except the Imam of the time? He's muttar because of the situation that he is in. He is not able to come back. And we remember the ayah from Surah Al-Qasas 83, تِلْكَ دَارُ الْآخِرَةِ نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُرِيدُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَا فَسَادًا وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. That ultimately, inshallah, we are from among the group of the people who are living for Darul Akhirah, and we don't seek uluwan wa fasada. We don't seek some sign of grand position in this world. وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This has to be our mindset when we go into reciting Dua al-Ahad. If this is not our mindset, then the dua will not have a ta'theer and an effect on our hearts. That we have to know what it is that we are seeking from Allah Azza wa Jal. Do we have tears in our eyes? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And people ask, where is God? When they see these things. All the time people come and ask me, Shaykhna, where is God? Where is your God? Show me. Where? Maybe it's a good question. I would ask them, where are you? Where are we? The question is not, where is God? Where have we gone? As if we are perfect? As if we have done everything we are supposed to do? As if we are all sincere mawaleen of Imam al-Hussein at every moment in our life. لا يسألوا عما يفعلوا وهم يسألون. He will not be asked about what he did. Rather, they shall be asked about what they did. Surah Al-Anbiya, ayah 23. Answering the call of Imam al-Hussein is answering the call of Sahib al-Zaman. But I want to make one point very clear. And then I have two more points and we'll, inshallah, discuss the night of Abi Fadl Abbas. Salamullahi alayhi. The first point is we don't endeavor on this path to feel good about ourselves. This is very important. We have this culture I don't know what it is about wanting to feel good. That everything should feel good. That you should feel good about yourself. Yes, we should have izzah and integrity and dignity, self-dignity. Yes, yes, yes. But not every aspect of deen. It will bring us happiness, but it won't feel good at the beginning. Because it requires a level of sacrifice. Getting up and reciting dua ahad requires a level of sacrifice. If we're not used to it, it requires a level of sacrifice. It may not feel good. See, but we live in a culture that if we don't feel good immediately, we abandon it. Because we live in a culture of profound cowardly weakness. A culture of cowards, of weaklings. People don't want to persevere in things. Right? You know, they have a saying that, someone can pray a few days, they get bored of it, and then move on to something else. It's a sign that religion is very weak in people's lives. So we don't join the mission of Imam al-Hussein, the mission of Sahib al-Zaman, for the purpose of feeling good about ourselves. There will be aspects of it that will require sacrifice on our part. There will be aspects of it that will require us to sometimes feel uncomfortable. It's not a matter of our convenience. That's one point. The second point that I wanted to mention tonight is a very, 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 very important point here. And it's a very simple point. From Surah Zumar, Ayah 9. قُلْ هَلْ يَسْتَوِيَ الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. That are those who know equal to those who don't know. That one of the signs of those that are preparing for the coming of the Imam, that are in the line of the Imam, the sabil of the Imam, based on the riwayat of Ahlul Bayt, and we'll talk about this another night, is their commitment to the path of the ulama. Is their love for the ulama. Is their zeal and respect for the scholars. I was in Chicago a few years ago at a very beautiful center with a group of very senior scholars. I don't want to, one of them is a student of Sheikh Ja'far Subhani for many years. The salah finished. The alim finished the salah. The sheikh finished praying Salatul Jama'ah fi shahr Ramadan. And the iftar was finished. So it wasn't like people were running for the iftar. That I understand sometimes. People are hungry. They want their coffee and their kebab or whatever to eat right away sometimes. Nobody went to shake the hand of the alim to say taqabbal Allah a'malakum. May Allah accept your a'mal. Or even to shake his hand. And he saw a bunch of fathers there and he gathered them. This sheikh has some guts, I'll tell you, but he's a senior scholar. People won't say anything to him. He's not a young, he's a senior, older scholar. He told the parents, a sign for me, and he called them out right in front of everybody. I was a little bit shocked. Ajabtu. And he said, it seems to me you have not taught your children the respect of scholars. Remember, a sign that they don't even come to shake my hand is a sign that they don't care. And that's a sign of their lack of understanding and attachment to this deen. That is one of the signs. Not to say that everyone has to come and shake the hand, but the point is that lack of attachment to our ulama, and especially towards our maraja, al-kiram, al-afadil, is a sign when someone's connection and ittisal with the deen is very weak, it's da'if, it's loose. And we'll talk about that. But this is extremely important, especially in developing a relationship with the Imam of the time, because the Aimah have said that those who carry our traditions, وَالرُّوَاتُ حَدِيثِنَا, they are to be honored in our communities. They are to be given a position unlike any other position in our communities. No one would deny this. Unless we would consider ourselves or someone else would consider themselves to be the possessor of the traditions of Ali Muhammad. So this is a sign. Salamullahi alayhim ajma'een. This is a sign of someone's attachment to the deen. And through that, their attachment to Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman. There's no doubt. And there's one more last piece of advice. Because all of this is connected to the attachment of the Imam of the time. There's a beautiful piece of advice from Sheikh Abdullah al-Mamaqani, Sahib Tanqi al-Muqal, في كتابه مرآة الرشاد. Beautiful book that he wrote as a wasiyah and a will for his children. And each one has a section in it. He was a great alim, great scholar. He wrote many, many books in hadith, rijal, kalam, fiqh, theology, jurisprudence, you name it. He was a great marja and alim and ayatullah. He says, عليك بني بإقامة أعزاء أبي عبد الله عليه السلام. That he says, my son, it is incumbent upon you to establish the A'za of Abi Abdullah, the mourning for Imam al-Hussein. في كل يوم وليلة, every morning and night, he says. حسب مقدورك, يعني according to your ability. Even if, he says, nobody prepares anything for you. إلا على قراءة كتاب التعزية, except that you should read the ta'ziyah. You know, some narration about the musibah of Imam al-Hussein to your children in every single day. Why? He says, do this فإنه عزيز الله تعالى لوصوله في العتاعة إلى درجة التفرد بها, because he reached a position that nobody did, and he gave up himself and his wealth and his family, كلها في سبيله تعالى. So we raise our children with two things: the honoring and love of our scholars, and the love and commitment every day to the remembrance of the musibah of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And I promise you, inshallah, our children will be among the salihin. And we, inshallah, will be included among the salihin. And if we don't have children, we do it for ourselves, obviously. There is so much tawfiq in this. I cannot describe it to you. I'm not able to describe it to you, how much tawfiq there is in this. And you will see tawfiq in your life. Unimaginable tawfiq. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. It is on this day that we turn to al-Baneen, Salamullahi alayha, and we remember her 4 boys, her 4 lions in Karbala: Al-Abbas, Abdullah, Ja'far wa Uthman. 4 sons in Karbala. Actually, there were nearly 12 children of Amir al-Mu'mineen that were there and martyred. The mothers were Maymuna, Asma bint Umays, right? Their son On. Many children of Amir al-Mu'mineen were there. Why, Mama? Nevertheless, everybody, as we know the story, felt a degree of comfort and sukoon as long as Abbas, Salamullahi alayhi, was with them. Even Imam al-Hussein, as we'll see at the end, even for Imam al-Hussein, subhanallah, al-Imam al-Ma'soom, yet Abbas gave the Imam a degree of sukoon and comfort. What is the maqam of Abu Fadl Abbas, subhanallah. Abu Mikhnaf narrates in his Maqtal that Abu Fadl Abbas asked Imam al-Hussein to assemble the entire family, after which he dug a hole, hoping that some water would come out. Because the riwayat tell us that Abbas salamullahi alayhi was the last one left. This was it. This was the final moments of the Imam's life. The final moments of the tragedy of Karbala, at least for that moment, until the tragedy of the women and the children would begin. So they dug a hole and they realized that there is no water. At this point, the Imam and Abbas salamullahi alayhi go towards the Furat. They're blocked off. An arrow is fired and it lands in the shoulder of Imam al-Hussein by al-Darimi. One of the archers fires an arrow, it lands in the shoulder of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He pulls it out and his palms are filled with his own blood. The Imam was now experiencing the pangs of thirst, al-atash. Abbas turns to the Imam, his brother, and he says, Ya akhi, hal min rukhsa? My brother, is there any way for me to go? Do you want to know what happens now? فَبَكَّ الْحُسَيْنِ بُكَاءً شَدِيدًا. Now Abu Abdullah begins to cry. We don't see this. Bakka al-Hussein. Can you imagine the wazn? What is the weight of the buka of Abu Abdullah? فَبَكَّ الْحُسَيْنِ بُكَاءً شَدِيدًا. Why? Hussein knew, salamullahi alayhi, Sayyidul Shuhada, he knew that this was now the final stand, the final moments. Because he could see, alayna atash al-Hussein, alayna atash al-Hussein, alayna atash al-Hussein. On us is the thirst of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. He already collected the body parts of his sons, of Qasim, Ali al-Akbar, On, Muhammad, salamullahi alayhim ajma'een. He turns to Abbas. He says, Ya akhi, anta sahibul liwa'i. My brother, you are the holder of my flag bearer. Qad daqa sadri. And my chest is paining. Wa Husayna wa Abbasa. There was a voice of desperation. He says, if you must go, now go to fetch some water. Abbas goes to Umar ibn Sa'ad. He tells him, Ya Umar ibn Sa'ad, هذا الحسين ibn bint Rasulullah. This is Hussein, the son of the daughter of Rasulullah. You have killed his companions. قتلت أصحابه وأولاده. But here are his children suffering from thirst. Umar ibn Sa'd refuses to give them water. Abbas now darts off onto his horse towards the Furat. Some riwayat state that 4,000 soldiers were blocking. These were now minutes of desperation. And he reaches the Furat, for which the milk of the mothers had already dried up. He looks at the river and he bends down and he puts his hand into the water. And he says, oh my soul, after him nothing should amount. هذا الحسين وارد المنوني. This is Hussein nearing his end. And while you shall enjoy water, he now fills the bag up. Brothers, shall we narrate now what happens? He fills up the qirba, he fills up the bag of water, salamullahi alayhi. Imagine his sense of urgency, the thirst of Sukaina, the thirst of the children. He now darts back with each gallop, hoping to reach the children. فقطعوا عليه الطريق, and they cut off his path. فأحاطوا به من كل جانب, and they surround him from every side. He was ambushed now, and they begin to fire siham, arrows after arrows, warima, and spears. Nawfal al-Azraq now cuts the right hand of Abbas off. Abbas moves the bag into his left hand. We're told now Abbas looked like a porcupine kalkunfud. He was covered in arrows. Salamullahi alayh. He continued to ride, and he said, Wallahi, if you cut off my right hand, I will forever protect my religion. But as he continued to ride, Hakim bin Tufail, hiding behind the tree, jumps out and he cuts off his left hand. فَحَمَلَ الْكِرْبَ بِأَسْنَامِهِ, and now he's holding the water with his teeth. فَجَاءَهُ سَهْمٌ فَأَصَابَ الْكِرْبَ, and now an arrow lands in the water bag. The water begins to drip out onto him. The water is now gone. Abbas has no arms. The water has now poured out of the bag. Some riwayat say he tried to put the sword, the safe, in his mouth, but he could not. They continued to fire arrows at him, firing spears at him. The water is spilling on the ground. فَقَاتَلُهُمْ قِتَالًا شَدِيدًا. He tries to continue to fight. Then another arrow comes and it enters his sadr and his chest. Then they come and they take an iron and hit him on his head. فَوَقَعَ الْعَبَّاسِ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ. Abbas falls onto the earth. وَيُخُورُ بِدَمِهِ, and his blood is coming out. He says, أَدْرَاكَ أَخَاكَ يَا غَرِيب. الغريب عليك مني السلام يا أبا عبد الله. أدرك أخاك الغريب. Come to your غريب brother. Come to my help يا أبا عبد الله. شوف نداءات العباس, نداء العباس سلام الله عليه. Can we imagine the screams of Abbas, the surak of Abbas? Imam al-Hussein now says, وَعَبَاسَ وَاخَا وَاخَا يا مهجة قلبا. Zainab Salamullah alayhi now begins to hear. She begins to scream, وَاخَا وَعَبَاسَ. فَأَتَاهُ الْحُسَيْن. Hussein now reaches Abbas. And it is related in the riwayat from Alamat al-Zanjani, who says, he says, يا أخي يا نور عيني وشقيقي. Oh, the light of my eyes, my brother. يا قمرا منيرا كنت عوني. Oh, the shining moon, you were my helper. سقاك الله كأس من رحيق. Allah is going to give you a quenching thirst, a quenching water. قد كنت كالركن الوثيق. الوثيق. You are the rukun, you are my backbone. يا ابن أبي نصحت أخاك. You are devoted to your brother. يا نور عيني. Now the Imam Salamullahi alayhi, what does he say, brothers? الآن انكسر ظهري. Now my back is broken. Imagine, what does it take to break the dhahr of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam? What does it take to break the back of Sayyid al-Shuhada? وَقَلَّتْ هِيلَتِي. And my forbearance is weakened. وَشَمَتَ بِي عَدُوِي. And my enemies are happy because of this now. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وعباسا وإماما مأتم الحسين. يا أحبائي.